Hello, everyone. This is Mike and
Rainbow.
And today on Dimensional Walking, we are going to talk about abductees and the voices they hear. Okay.
It's a question and answer.
And it's a question and answer. I'm going to ask the questions and Rainbow's going to give all the wonderful answers. I may throw in a few things I might also from my own experiences. But we want to talk today about the voices that people that are abductees and contactees and other people hear in their minds when they're dealing with abductions or they're dealing with contact of any sort, okay? And we're also going to talk about family members and what their feelings are and how they look at their family members when they do hear these things and they talk about them. So, and this includes children, because children are very famous for hearing different little voices and seeing different little things. So we want to kind of talk about that and how that all fits into everything.
Right.
So with that said, Rainbow, how did this all start?
Well, it started when I was very, very young. I came from a generational family that had experiences with alien abductions and contact. I don't think anybody ever admitted to it, and everybody was very afraid of it. So when I was dealing with it on an extreme level where I was being taken every night. But the one caveat I want to say here is that I didn't have like a really scary experience when I was young all the time. It just depended on who was doing the abduction, who was taking me somewhere. So I had a gray aliens who would take me different places. And I actually have a drawing here that I did. And I'm going to try to show it to you without the glare. I think there we go.
That's pretty good right there. Yeah.
This is what they look like. And they used to take me out at night and on the east side of Albuquerque and different locations in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And they would have me do different things. I was also taken on various bases and different things. And so what started off at a very young age has never really ended. It's just that how I relate to it and how I deal with it has changed.
Oh, okay. So how does this impact your family, and how did it impact things like your schooling, etc.?
Well, children are the easiest targets for a variety of reasons, because number one, unfortunately, children are seen but not heard. So with that factor, parents will usually just say, oh, it's your imaginary friend, or, oh, you just heard, you just had a nightmare, or they discount it maybe out of the fact they're afraid of it. I think my parents were afraid of it, but mine were so extreme that I wake up screaming, or I'd wake up so panicky and fearful. And my abductions actually happened also during the daytime, not just at night.
Right.
So I would have experiences in the house, paranormal experiences, because what happens to children when they're abducted, the paranormal, that doorway is it's open and it never closes. And then you have the paranormal attracted to you for the rest of your life. It's like you have a neon sign saying, come over here and see me. So with my family, they were very afraid of it. And I actually ended up going to two psychologists when I was probably about 17, 18, because it was really extreme when I was about 18. I had a ton of stuff happening to me, not just as a child, but actually growing up at various ages. And when I went to go talk to these different psychologists, they said it was all in my head. So again, I had more adults telling me that it was all in my head, but yet I had these marks on my body. I didn't do these marks on my body. I had these very clear memories of locations in Albuquerque, all this stuff. And I was told it was all in my head. So you have to get to a point to where you just start, you're isolated. And that's what happens with people who are in this type of situation, is that you become alienated and then you don't talk about it. And so a lot of people don't start talking about this until they're in their 40s.
Yeah,
30s
they
or 40s,
may have some
older.
flashbacks, etc.
Sure. Or they just won't talk about it until they get to a certain point where they have a breakdown, and then they talk about it. And so,
or also they may run across somebody that's had similar experiences, or another person that is willing to talk about it and kind of make it as not that big of a deal.
Like me.
It's easy.
Someone
It's
like me.
right, like you,
Yeah.
or like me, even though I probably haven't had that many personal experiences being abducted. I think I have, but I
I
don't
think
have a
you
great,
have.
I don't have really amazing memories of that. But I'm very sympathetic with people that have and do understand the plight that they're up against.
Yeah. And the one thing that I found in this particular with abductions, with people who are being abducted, is that it's not you would think it would be everybody in the family, but it's specific people in a family. And I think that's how a lot of these alien groups prefer to do it, because if you got everybody in the family, which, and there have been,
There have
yeah,
been,
there
yeah,
have
there
been,
have been, because I've been
what I'm,
involved with some of them.
but
Yeah.
in my case and in other different people I've talked to, there was a select, like one or two person, with me, it was my three sisters. The three of us were abducted. And I think that my mom was too, but my dad would never talk about it. And I never heard of anything with my cousins or my aunts and uncles or my grandparents. And it could just been a taboo kind of conversation to have with them. No one wanted to talk about stuff like that. And I think that in my case, people tend to connect this to religion, and they try to make it into something demonic when it's not demonic. It's actually something else coming in and doing different things. And I think that's something else that we have to, I want to make clear here, is that there's a very big difference between someone who's having religious issues and problems and demonic experiences versus the alien abduction. There's a big difference between the two.
Well, that kind of that leads me a little bit into the kind of the next one of the next questions. So what type of emotional, spiritual, and physical and mental things are involved in this whole the hearing of these voices?
Well,
From the hearing of these voices, yeah.
When you're hearing these, the biggest problem that you have is when I was a child and I learned telepathy at a very young age. And so then I went to school and I had to learn to read and write like everybody else. And I was shown how to learn differently. So it affects a certain part of your brain.
Mhm.
And then you have to go into school and learn this way. So I tended to be behind kids who were reading, because for me, it was just quicker to do things telepathically. And then what happens is that you're told that you have a learning disability, you're retarded, or you're mentally whatever. And then you have that stigma with you the rest of your life. You carry it with you like I did.
Right.
And so what happens is that with the different ways that you learn, they're not compatible with each other, because it's just made sense to me as a child, just for my teacher to telepath what she wanted me to do. It was quicker. It's not that the reading was hard. I think it was just that how the different things that the aliens had me do were in a different format, just a different way. Then what happens is that you're alienated from your school friends, and then you can't ask your friend, or you could, and I did, do they have these experiences? And then of course you're an outcast. Nobody wants to hang with you because you're the weirdo. So that's kind of the one thing about how I say children are the easiest target, because if you can alienate a child, they're pretty much alienated throughout their whole lives, because it's something that they feel different. And then what happens is that you're told that you're kind of special because you're in a certain group. And then all of a sudden you find that you're an outcast one day, even with the aliens, because in my instance, it seemed to me that I wasn't actually this intellectual that they had hoped I was. And so the contact that I used to have, I normally had, stopped. And then you have this weird emotional connection to these alien groups and the experience, and it kind of messes with you mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You understand there's other groups out there outside of humans, and yet you're not really ever able to talk about it. And when I did try to talk about it, because I grew up Catholic, I got kicked out of the priest's office. He told me to get out get the hell out of, actually basically get the hell out of his office.
So you think he was afraid of what you were telling him?
Well,
There
both
was
priests
really
that I talked to were
didn't-
very
didn't-
afraid.
Didn't really understand it, or just afraid, or maybe they did understand it and they didn't want to deal with you. Did they think you were possessed or something, or what?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
All the above. I don't really know,
Right.
but I know that it made me feel like an outcast for a long time until I learned the Native American way, the medicine way.
Mhm.
And then I realized that hearing voices was kind of to my advantage, being a medicine woman and being able to experience the different varieties of communication, and learning how to do the telepathic way was an advantage as well. So I was alienated and felt very different up until I met my ex-husband, who was Thunderbow, and learned the Native American way of understanding nature and Gaia and all of that.
Okay. So Emma, let me ask you this. How would you know the difference between like a demon and an alien? How would you know the difference?
That's a very good question. And what we'll do is I'll answer that in part 2.
Okay, super. That's a good lead up to the end of part 1. So anyways, hopefully some of the information has been helpful. And our email, if you'd like to contact us and maybe have some different things you want to communicate with us, please do at dimensionalwalking@gmail.com. And please subscribe. And any comments, you can comment here, or you can, of course, comment by sending us an email, etc. So with that, did you want to?
Yeah, I like to plug again my favorite magazine, Paranormal Underground. This is the January issue, and this is my article on abductees and hearing voices, and I talk a little bit more about that in this article. So if you want to subscribe to Paranormal Underground, I know Cheryl and Chad would greatly appreciate it, and you can go to paranormalunderground.net.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's .net. Okay, super. Okay, we will see you in part 2 coming up in the next few days. Thanks a lot. Happy trails. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.